Let's talk Battlegrounds Season 30 options, potential counters, things to look out for, and maybe some strategies as well. In the season, there is an emphasis around the new boost. We'll be doing this video separately about the new boost, this one that basically gives you a human torch-based abilities. So you can see here, charging a heavy attack grants 10 temperature charges for X amount of seconds per second. Striking with a heavy attack grants 5 temperatures. At 100 temperature, gain flame on passive. And basic attacks deal a burst of 50% attack direct damage. Temperature can't be gained whilst flame on is on. Temperature reduced by 5 seconds. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Gives you some extra damage, but that's not the thing to point out as the main thing about Victory Track. And we're separating out the video. There should be a tab going Victory Track and then Gladiator Circuit. So let's have a look again about breaking this down a little bit more. For assessment on the Victory Track meta, I've said like this. Mystic champs will deal with suppressing armor and regeneration because the other part of it is Arc Overload. Overload. So there will be a regeneration and an armor up buff that will appear. So you want to suppress those. We'll talk about options, about tackling that in a minute, but effectively that's the other part of this that could be frustrating. Saga champions will get that extra damage spike based on the temperature ability. Mystics will be able to deal with suppressing those buffs and operate well, but don't look away from heal blockers, armor breakers to counter overload, and there's also a cowardice buff that will a cowardice debuff that will appear on you when you throw a special attack. Yeah, so part of reluctant retaliation gives you a 30% cowardice passive for 15 seconds on you. I would say this is where, is it going to be an issue for you? Maybe yes, maybe no. Are you going to focus mainly on basic attacks instead? Or are you going to focus on having in champions that are dot-based champions? Or champions where you're like, well, I'm not going to throw a special attack, but I've got fury buffs, I've got amplification of damage potential, so I'm just going to do that. I mean, a good example would be a comparison. It would be like Shuri. Not necessarily a champion you go, well, throwing special attacks is important, but all my damage is largely coming from shock debuffs and shock effects, so to speak, rather than relying on something like a mutant-based champion where prowess is going to be super essential to do a lot of damage off of special attacks, like Bishop, like Storm. So you go away from option Storm and Bishop and more for things like Shuri or other champions that have dot-based damage or a different type of rotation. This is where a lot of my attack-based recommendations fall into that particular brief. Like where you've got the likes of Juggernaut and Dr. Doom throwing staggers or passive staggers, you've then got Wiccan with Fate Seal, we've got champions that suppress or do damage applicable to when buffs are on there, like America Chavez, like in fact Kashala, but then there's other ones that do pack a punch as well, that kind of get access to any kind of like nullification, which are quite handy, like Isophene. And I think White Tiger's got elements with power gain, but I'm just trying to remember a lot of the champion abilities off the bat. There are a fair amount of Mystic-based champions that will be very helpful right here. But also don't rule out the likes of Titania and any type of stagger-based building champion outside of the Mystic line. The same thing with not ruling out champions that are Saga-based champions. If you're looking to do a bit more damage, then Dr. Doom, of course, mentioned a moment ago, Scream, Angela, Gore, Arnim Zola, Spider-Man Supreme, I think might be a very interesting champion, and Hyperion as well will be very kind of like decent champion options for the Victory Track meta. Also, don't rule out your general nukers like Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, Human Torch, who's also a Saga-based champion, I did forget about that, Hulkling, Hulk, Gallon, you name it. Actually, I think Gallon might be another kind of Saga-based champion, but they're all good, all relevant, and incredibly powerful. And defenders, for those that are wondering in Victory Track, I would go with just your most powerful defenders. You could have, say, nullify immune-based champions that, you know, effectively will be able to just gain a lot without having anything really taken away from them. But it's just going to be powerful defenders. I would not be surprised if I didn't see Red Skull, Enchantress, Man-Thing, Killmonger, Kindred, Dust, Bullseye, Onslaught, Destroyer maybe, but definitely Nova. There's going to be a lot of regulars that you're going to see. And also Photon being placed in defense. It's a regularity. So maybe pack into your deck counters for those particular champions. It's always very difficult to recommend stuff to Gladiator circuit-based players because a lot of the time they're very experienced, very skilled. So going, hey, this might be a good option, they've probably got some better options, let's just say. So for those that may be thinking, oh, what you got, Rich? Got anything interesting that I don't really know about? Well, you've still got the same things in first week 1 and 2, which is the Arc Overload, Torches Ferocity, Grey, and the Reluctant Retaliation. But you've got also Electric Defense being added into this. So each time the defender is struck while under an armor up buff, and the enemy will have an armor up buff, by the way, unless you suppress it early doors, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Power burns the attack of a 10% of bar power. Power burn damage scales with each armor up buff and defender's base attack. At this point, I would think about power burn immune based champions. There are some to consider, but effectively, not every champion is going to match what your opponent is going to field in defense. Like, hey, they've put in a Mystic in defense. Like, great, I'm going to use King Groot because he's power burn immune. That's a good idea, isn't it? And by the way, that's sarcasm. No, it's not a good idea. And by the way, the spreadsheet for this is available in the link in the description. The points from the previous tabs remain the same. And how you set up for the Reluctant Retaliation, so the Cowardice, I'm not saying it's null and void, but again, you might look to champions that have an ability to have Fury buffs as the means to build attack and do damage, damaging debuffs, dot-based damage, because the Cowardice will suppress your ability to do high amounts of special attack damage. That's where we might, but also I did forget to mention that if armor comes into play, then people might field defensive champions with a lot of armor within their kits or easy access to. That way, your counter with that would be champions that access armor breaks, suppression-based mystics, and power burn immunity. So we'll talk about some options. So defensive options you can see right here, recommendations, close to the armor up, build and buff. You can go with Red Skull. I think Future Ant-Man might be frustrating. Guillotine 299, Iceman, War Machine for sure. I think that Ultron, Infamous Iron Man definitely, maybe Guardian, definitely a Mega Sentinel, Standard Sentinel, definitely Shuri. Yeah, Killmonger might be amongst some of the more frustrating defenders, but this is a general frustrating defenders will probably be key to this. But if we're talking about attacking-based options, there's some interesting ones that spring to mind. Along the Cosmic line, if you're looking for power burn immunity options, you do have access to Gladiator, Gallon, Vox, Hulkling, and Phoenix, which I should definitely rank up. There's also some other and alternative options. If for whatever reason those tech champions have been fielded, then a lot of them are hashtag metal. So you could look to Magneto and an SP1 rotation for armor break, which that could be handy. Then it's back to the mutant. No, it's not. Then it's back to the Cosmic line for Angela, King Groot. Then you've got Scream for armor break based champions, which could help you out. There's also Medusa, there's King Groot Deathless, and there's so many more. But this all implies that players are going to set up in a certain way. And a lot of the time, people set up how they really feel is best, but then sometimes change it. Sometimes they don't draft what they need to. So it's not always going to be plain sailing, depending how you're playing into this. Whether it's armor breakers, heal blockers as well, counting elements of Arc Overlord. I keep saying Arc Overlord. It's not, it's Arc Overload, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not always easy to set up or think you've got the right setup. So always think about adapting. If something's frustrating you faced off against, maybe think about fielding that or ranking it up as a defensive element or choose an attacking element to counter. Now, to finish off the video, weeks 3 to 4 for Gladiator Circuit. Again, I think a lot of people in Gladiator Circuit will largely go, Rich, I'm not interested. I know exactly what I want to do or how I want to set up my particular team, and that's fair play. I would say that it just looks like a standard choose your most difficult defender, but also just make sure to do the rotation to kind of like knock down enemies as paired. There's more of a simple just do a well-timed block to remove the obstinate charge. You'll need to knock down the opponent when possible to remove protection, which I can't spell protection, it seems. So always use protection and spell it right too. Yeah, so that defender option is the most difficult ones, and any champion will do. But oh, you want to focus on not dashing back unless you want to heal up the defender. That I forgot to mention. That's probably the most key thing. Do you want to do that? Are you okay with not dashing back? If you have to, then you might want to bring heal block champions in. Your top counters are probably the best ones, or heal block champions, or don't. You know, it's your choice. But those would be my options and suggestions for those in Victory Track, and obviously to those in Gladiator Circuit. But as I've said, people that go into Gladiator Circuit largely have an idea of like how they want to set up and how they want to play. But this should help out people at least get into the early parts of Uru, and then of course go at your own leisure with options. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please check out and support the channel by checking out some other content, and I'll see you all in the next video, whatever we're covering. Bye bye for now.